To install Rhino, you are going to navigate to rhino3d.com. We're going to click on Download. If you're on Windows, you're going to install the Windows version, and for Mac, here on the right, Rhino 6 for Mac. We're going to be using the evaluation, the trial version. And this is, like it says here, a full version for 90 days. It saves, it does everything you need it to do. And 90 days will get us through the semester. There's some other interesting things here on the Rhino website. You can go to Gallery and look at a few examples of things that people have designed in Rhino. The community, it's an awesome community. If you have questions, the forum is pretty amazing. You can ask many, many questions. And there's also a Learn section with a couple of manuals here, and also some tutorials that you can look at as well. Okay, so we've installed Rhino, and I'm going to go to my Finder, and you'll see in Applications I have Rhinoceros. I'm going to double click on that, and that's going to open up Rhinoceros. So I have a few recent models open of things that I had been working on. This will most likely be empty for you. For our interest here, we're going to click on Templates. And you will see there are various templates that have already been set up for you. Large objects in feet and inches, all the way down to small objects meters, small objects millimeters. For 3D printing, I often use small objects millimeters. Today, let's maybe work on large objects meters. Here we go. Now I can make this my default template by clicking on this button, or for now I'm just going to double click, and this will open up a new Rhino file. The next thing I want to discuss is the difference between preferences and file settings. Preferences can be found under Rhinoceros Preferences. And here we have things you can change and settings you can change that pertain to the application itself. So if I were to change something here, close the application, open it up again, those preferences would be set. Whereas file settings, these are the settings for this particular file. In other words, if I change my annotation styles or my grid style in this file, it only will activate with this file. So let's go back to Rhinoceros Preferences. This is something that I prefer in my settings for Rhino. I am not very fond of this gray background and these grid lines. I find it a little drab, sometimes hard to see, so I'm going to change a few colors. So let's click on Colors. And this, of course, is very personal. You can decide if you want to change these settings. I find it quite useful, and these are the color settings I've been working with for a while. At any point, you can also just click on Restore Defaults if you want to go back to the default colors. So here are some of the settings that I use. So I'm going to click on Viewport Background, and I'm going to, you see this color box, you can choose different modes for color. I'm going to click on the sliders, and I'm going to choose Grayscale Slider. My viewport background, I'm going to set to a brightness of 95%. My major grid lines, I'm going to change to 80%. And my minor grid lines, I'm going to change to 90%. Now, the other color that I like to change is for selected objects. So this is the color that your object turns when you have it selected. I find this yellow a little hard to see, and especially on this white background. So I'm going to select selected colors. This time I'm going to go to my RGB sliders, and I'm going to punch in FF3300, which is a nice sort of orange. Close this window. Close this window, and now these settings will be saved with the application, so next time I open it up, all these colors will be set. And just to show you what the selected color looks like. See, I can really see that color over there. Let's have a look at display modes. There are several ways you can activate display modes, but I feel one of the most useful and fastest ways is to just go to your Viewport tab. Here we are in perspective. I'm going to right click, and right now you can see I'm in wireframe mode. So let's have a look at what shaded looks like. So we get a little bit of a better sense of what this object looks like. Let's continue and look at rendered and ghosted. I find ghosted quite useful because you can see both the solids, but you can also sort of see through the object. So that can be quite handy when you're modeling. You can change the display mode by viewport. So for example, maybe in the top view, I want it to be rendered, but in perspective, I want it to be wireframe. So that's quite useful. Let's say I've set my grid and unit preferences, but I'd like to just on the fly change this. I can just use my command line, and I'm just going to type in grid, press enter. And you can see I can change my snap spacing, my minor line spacing, my major line interval, extents. This is the size of the grid. So let's, for example, say I want this to be 700. And maybe I don't want to see the grid. I don't want to see the axes. I also don't want to see the world axes. So I can apply this to the active viewport, which right now is perspective, or I can apply that to all viewports.